Abraham and Sarah. The story. Many generations following God's first failed attempt to redeem humanity through Noah and his family, with them continuing their sinful ways, God attempted to redeem humanity again through one of the descendants of Noah's son Shem, a 75-year-old man from Ur named Abram. While living in Haran, God commanded Abram, who would later become Abraham, "Go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house, to the land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and make your name great, and so you shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed." Without question, Abram followed God's command, taking his wife and half-sister Sarai, later named Sarah, his nephew and business partner Lot, and all the possessions the three had obtained, to this new land God would show them, which they would find out was Canaan. In Canaan, Abram built an altar to God, after he promised Abram, "To your descendants I will give this land," while he, Sarai and Lot were settled in Shechem, near the oak of Moreh. The three continued to a mountain between Bethel and Ai, where Abram built another altar to God. They travelled further, settling in Negev. At some point Negev experienced a large famine, leading Abram and company to travel on to Egypt. In Egypt, Abram commanded Sarai to act as his sister, not wife, in fear that the Pharaoh would kill him. At first, Abram's plan worked, with the Egyptians and Pharaoh treating the pair well. However, God tormented them, exposing the truth, after which Abram and Sarai left. Abraham would do a similar thing sometime after he and Sarah were visited by the three strangers, when they visited Gerar. Following this, the three returned to Negev, and later the area between Bethel and Ai, where they settled before. By this point, Lot and Abram had become very rich and decided to part ways, as there wasn't enough land for both. Lot went down to the valley of the Jordan, settling in Sodom, while Abram returned to Canaan, settling by the oaks of Mamre in Hebron. A good while following this, God appeared to Abram in a vision, promising to give him a son. When Abram didn't believe him, God showed him the stars of the night sky. Abram believed, and God reckoned it to him as righteousness. Years later, when Abram was 99 and Sarai was 90, God appeared to Abram again. This time God made a covenant with Abram. He confirmed his promise of a son, commanding Abram to name him Isaac. He also promised to make him the father of nations through this son Isaac. He changed Abram's name to Abraham and Sarai's to Sarah, and also told Abram that he, Isaac, and his descendants would be circumcised as a sign of this covenant. Sometime later, Abraham and Sarah were visited by three mysterious strangers. After the three and Abraham ate, one of the three asked where Sarah was. When she joined them, the same stranger confirmed to both Sarah and Abraham that, "I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah your wife will have a son." Sarah didn't believe him, yet that time the following year Isaac was born when Abraham was 100 years old, and through Isaac God would continue the family line leading to Jesus. Digging deeper. We'll start by looking at Genesis chapter 12 verses 1 to 3. This is God's call to Abraham and is a prophecy calling forward to the Israelites, the trip of Moses and the Israelites, and to Jesus. In verse 1, God tells Abraham to go to a land he would show him. Verse 5 reveals this land to be Canaan. Canaan is the main nation God commanded Moses to take the people of Israel to and conquer, as seen in Exodus chapter 3 verse 17. Canaan is also significant because the people of Canaan, the Canaanites, the descendants of Noah's son Ham's son Canaan, the same Canaan cursed by Noah in Genesis chapter 9 verse 25. This also ties into verse 2 of Genesis chapter 12, where God tells Abraham he'll make him a great nation. Abraham is a descendant of one of Noah's other sons, Shem, and the great-grandfather of the 12 sons of Jacob, the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel, God's chosen people, fulfilling another part of Noah's curse on Canaan, found in Genesis 9 verse 26, where Noah says that Canaan will serve Shem. which happened as the Israelites conquered the Canaanites and their land. Finally, verse 3 points to Jesus. The last line points to his death and resurrection, God's final and true redemption of humanity. It also connects the previous two lines, saying, "Those who believe and closely follow Jesus' teachings will be blessed and enjoy everlasting life with God. Those who don't will be cursed and suffer everlasting separation from God." We'll continue with Genesis chapter 15, God's second promise to Abraham, when he promises him a son. At this point, God hadn't commanded Abraham to name his son Isaac. That comes in chapter 17, verse 19. In this chapter, the majority of the verses from 13 to 21 prophesies the journey and timeline of the Israelites recorded in the book of Exodus. The first verse, verse 13, says that the Israelites would be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. First two details revealed later. Exodus 12:40 fulfills this, although it says for 30 years. This could be explained as Joseph's reign and or the Pharaoh reigned 30 years following Jacob and his sons' immigration to Egypt. Connecting to this idea is verse 14 of Genesis 15, saying the nation, that's Egypt, which enslaved God's people, would face judgment, brought through the 7 plagues recorded in Exodus 8 to 11. Lastly, verses 18 to 21 of Genesis 15, the promise that God would command Moses to begin to fulfill, and later Joshua. We'll finish with Genesis chapter 17, God's third promise to Abraham. Verse 5 of this chapter is the first time in the Bible that the name Abraham is used. Abraham's original name, Avram in Hebrew, is taken to mean exalted father. His new name, Avraham in Hebrew, is taken to mean father of nations. This makes sense because before chapter 17, God had only promised and confirmed that he would be the father of a son. However, in this chapter he promised and confirmed Abraham, his descendants from his son would become God's chosen people. This is also the chapter where God changes Sarah's name from Sarai to Sarah. Both names are the same, just with different spellings. Dr. Eli Leverkin Erisenberg and Reverend Jim Stowe suggest that the change could be because of her new calling and this new life she's beginning. This is also the chapter where the covenant of circumcision begins, a sign to separate the Jews from the Gentiles. Although Christians don't participate in this covenant anymore, as Paul explains in Galatians, it was and is a very important part of the Jews' identity. In saying this, Paul endorses a different kind of circumcision, for Christians softening their hard heart and letting Jesus' love fill it instead, as found in Romans 2:29. What to learn? What should we take away from the story of Abraham and Sarah? I believe it teaches us the importance of being obedient to God's commands and trusting in his ways. Abraham and Sarah were obedient to God from the very beginning. God told Abraham in Genesis 12 to take everything he had and go to an unknown land. Abraham and Sarah trusted this was God and were obedient to this command. Both of them would carry on this obedient, trusting attitude throughout the book of Genesis, with the author of the letter to the Hebrews praising both of them for their faith in chapter 11, verses 8 to 11. The author of the Hebrews identifies how Sarah trusted and obeyed God by believing he could provide her and Abraham with a child, despite their old age, Sarah 90 and Abraham 100. However, Abraham and Sarah were not perfect. Both had episodes of disobedience and uncertainty. Abraham hid his marital status with Sarah from the Pharaoh of Egypt while visiting at the end of Genesis 12, and while visiting Abimelech, king of Gerar, in Genesis 20. Abraham also questioned God's ability to give him a child due to his age. Sarah also did the same in Genesis 18, laughing at the idea a woman of her age could have a child. Despite this, God was still faithful, providing the child and descendants he promised, and today is no different. Even when we stumble or even fail, Jesus is still faithful and willing to give us another chance. In saying such, it is still better to trust and be obedient to God from the start, as God knows what's best for you and those around you.